Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Today is Monday, the 17th day of May, 2021, and this is a special meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Newburgh. First order of business is roll call. Mrs. Green,
Here.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Present.
Mr. Manley,
Here.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Here.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Here.
Okay, everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. In a moment to sign. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
of the United States
States of America,
America.
and to the
and
to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
One
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and
justice
justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, so the purpose of this meeting really is to make the town board more aware. You know, we're gonna have to vote on environmental impact study, so we have our experts out there. And if you look on the webpage, there's many studies posted. So anyone interested can look at them. But we really, for tonight, there's gonna be two, and I really want to go traffic, which would be Ken Worsted. And again, tonight is not a meeting where we're going to hear from the public. This is just for consultants to the town board with questions. So first, I'm going to just ask for a summary, Ken, a summary of the traffic that you've done in reference to the possible video terminal at shopping centers. So go ahead, Ken.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Ken Worsted with Creighton Manning Engineering, and I'm the traffic consultant for the town board in this case, and I often do work for the planning board on other applications. So we had received the traffic and parking study from the applicant. It was done by Mazer Consulting, which is transitioning over to Collier's Engineering and Design, and it was dated February 12th, 2021. And it basically did an analysis of the mall, and I'll say that it was about 2/3 of the mall, mainly the north end, where the Jennifer Furniture end of the mall would be transitioned out of the retail and changed over to the casino video lottery section. So the analysis that they had provided looked at a couple things, and first was the number of trips that would be generated, by the project. And there's a couple of ways to, study that. The Institute of Transportation Engineers compiles a lot of this trip information into a resource that we use. So if you were to go and build 100 new, residential homes, how would you predict how much traffic that would generate? Well, you use this resource because they've done studies on hundreds of residential uses. Similar to retail, they've gone through and looked at a lot of different retail projects, compiled that. So the analysis that they had done had looked at how much traffic would the Jennifer Furniture retail end generate on its own, and then compared it to how much traffic the VTL changeover would generate. And based on that information, based on how ITE predicts traffic would be generated, their analysis basically said that there would be a net decrease in traffic relative to a weekday afternoon and a Saturday. Now, we kind of looked at those findings. We said, okay, that makes sense. However, the mall may not be generating at the same rate as other malls in the US. And we had taken a different approach to it. And we had looked at the traffic counts they had done, at the mall, which was I think it was pre-pandemic. They had some information pre-pandemic, and then they had some information more recently. And if we said the mall is generating at a certain amount, less than ITE references, let's use that and do a comparison. So we had run our own little analysis as part of our March 17th comment letter. And this is in comment number 3. And we said if the mall is generating less traffic per square footage than ITE calculates, then we might actually see an increase in traffic. And during the weekday PM peak hour, we might actually see a 34% increase in traffic. And on a Saturday, we might see an 8% increase in traffic. Now, what does all that mean? It translates into about an additional 80 trips during the weekday PM peak hour. So if you were to total up all the traffic coming in and out of all the driveways based on how the mall operates now or before with the furniture, and then you translate it and you compare it to how it would operate after the VLTs are in there, it would be 80 more trips in that weekday afternoon peak hour. And on a Saturday, it would only be about 23 trips, more. Now we start to look at, well, how many driveways do they have? You've got one out to Meadow Hill, you've got 2 out to Route 300. You've got movements that are leaving and coming in. So we start to divide that up into directional movements, but also the different driveways. And it amounts to only about 5 to 20 trips increasing on any particular movement. And overall, based on the volumes that are out there on Route 300, based on the geometry, I don't anticipate that to be any significant impact relative to getting in and out of the mall altogether. And the next part that we started to look at was also the parking. And the parking areas that they had looked at, as I said, was about 2/3 of the site, mainly from like the Track 23 store to the north and around the north end of the site. And they found that about 80% of the spaces were unoccupied. That's about over 700 spaces were empty. So that's quite a bit. And that's even after they made some adjustments for COVID. At the time of their counts, obviously the mall was still open. You did have to wear a mask. We recognize that there are a number of stores that are empty. So those things, we did mention may have not been exactly taken account for, but the proposed parking demand basically varies from 500 spaces to about 830 spaces. And that includes employees, and it also includes about a 15% credit for people who might be either carpooling or taking transit, to the mall. Now, if you compare those differences, there's roughly 700 spaces available. And if your demand is going to be between 500 and 830 spaces, then largely you're going to have enough spaces there for just about everyone. However, there are going to be times where that north end of the mall is effectively going to be full. And I say effectively because there's always going to be a spot here or there that is empty. But if you're a bird flying over, you'll be able to spot those spaces, no problem. But as a driver sitting, on the access road, looking down an aisle and trying to decide if there's a spot down there, it's not going to be that easy to find those.
Right, thanks for calling.
So because a lot of the traffic, most of it's going to come in from Route 300, we think the front side, the east side of the mall is going to be the highest demand. And there's likely to be extra spaces available on the back side of the mall that are not going to be in people's view. So it may be necessary to provide some signing or ask employees to park in the back, because there will certainly be access, to the mall from that side, but there's going to be less customer demand relative to that side. So as much as you can get people who know the area to park in the back, that's going to free up more space in the front. So on On a Friday, the change of use is going to increase, obviously, the parking demand, reducing the surplus, parking to about, 13%, from the, I'll call it the remainder of the daylight hours, noon to 8 p.m. At 8 p.m., the mall's going to close. So you're going to have a lot of those customers that aren't going to demand, parking. So that frees up, some additional space. But really it's the daytime, afternoon, early evening times where it's going to be the most. And then on Saturday, that surplus will go down to about 7%, the northern lots again effectively being full. And then these estimates don't necessarily take into account the underutilized southern end of the mall. So there's probably going to be spaces down there that if more people are demanding parking at the north end for the casino, that's going to displace some of the people who might have otherwise wanted to, shop at the north end, but really the parking's full, so they kind of come in and they tend to park further south and then just walk through the mall to the north end to the store wherever they need to go. So overall, we think that the analysis basically demonstrates that there's adequate available parking during a non-holiday season. During the holiday season, Black Friday to Christmas, that's a big question mark. Their counts, I believe, were done after that holiday season. And there's also space that's already in the mall that's vacant. And I don't think there was any allocation or accounting for if that space were to be reoccupied. As there's more foot traffic in the mall, you might find those spaces have more demand for an operator to come in, and use those places. Relative to that kind of covered the parking and the traffic, side of things. We do think that there may be some demand for people walking to the adjacent Buffalo Wild Wings, or they might go a little further north in terms of looking for restaurants. You've got the Wendy's further north. You've got the Perkins, the Taco Bell, the Wild Wings, Mavis, Aspen Dental did construct a sidewalk across their frontage, and they stopped at the mall property line to the south on 300. So we think it'd be a good idea if the project were to continue that sidewalk down to the traffic signal and start to wrap in towards the mall. There is a transit bus stop right in front of or adjacent to the Cholitos restaurant. And right now it's just a sign. If they do expect that there could be more customers or staff who might take the bus, it would probably be good to have some type of shelter there, to protect those people during inclement weather. That kind of covers what the work that I had reviewed for the town board. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we did complete a review for the planning board. And if you'd like, I could just highlight that. I didn't have a lot, but if you're interested, the work that we did there, let me go back to my other review, mainly had to do with the potential for any bus parking that might come. I believe the applicant had said that they aren't promoting or facilitating any, bus trips, meaning you can't call the casino and say, hey, I want to take a bus, a chartered bus, and go there. But that's not to stop, Yankee Trails or Brown or some independent operator from offering it on their website. Hey, we're signing up a bus, a senior group get together and charter a bus. So we think it's important to be able to at least identify where the buses might drop off, where they might pick up. If they were to park, where would they be staged, for that? And one of the thoughts was on the west side of the mall, they are proposing to install a generator along the the west side of the access road through there. And if you drive through there now, it largely looks like a snow storage. You know, there's some plow equipment out there. And that might be a good place to be able to accommodate some bus parking, you know, if they find the need for it. We know the parking lot is in, I'll say, fair shape. There's quite a bit of, there's some potholes, there's some cracking in the asphalt. You know, you can make out where the striping is on the front side of the mall, but on the north and the back side, it's really tough, even in good, dry, you know, weather. But if it was dark and raining, you know, I think you'd be your best guess at, you know, where the striping would be for there. So overall, that's kind of the summary I had, and I'll turn it back to you guys.
Very good. Ken, thank you very much.
I have a
Appreciate
question.
that.
I have a question. When
Okay.
you were there recently, on the south side of the mall, there's been like an outdoor market that has been set up. Was that still there when you visited the last time?
No, I didn't see anything there at that time. I drove down around the south side, but I had been down there once in February. So there probably wasn't any outdoor market at the time.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks ago, I came in, but I was up at the north end
Okay.
looking at the parking at that side. So if
Um,
it's like a farmer's market, they might have a kind of a schedule that
The-
might fluctuate.
This
Yeah,
was
they do.
about 6 to 8 weeks ago. They had some produce, but it was more pocketbooks and different type of household things. And they were telling us that they were going to be there all the time.
Okay.
But I was just wondering if that was still there when you had visited the last time.
No, I didn't see it, but obviously it would come into a factor on the particular day that they're there, and how much area, you know, how much square footage of the parking lot they take up. You know, we have those outdoor kind of farmers markets. It's a mix of, like, you know, hard good vendors and a mix of plants and vegetables and that kind of thing. And they take over a whole parking lot, you know, of our local park. But it's Saturday mornings from like 9 to 1 o'clock, and then,
Yeah.
you know, they empty out, and then it's taken over, you know, by kids going to the playground or people using the park. So that does factor in the sense that as the casino starts to demand more parking at the north end, the customers who are going to the mall otherwise are pushed down to the south end. And during that particular market time, there may be parking that gets displaced from that. Now, if they're only displacing 10 cars, you know, from a parking lot that otherwise holds, you know, 50 or 60, then it may not matter, you know, very much. But
Okay.
if there's 50 or 60 cars trying to fit in that parking lot on a normal day, and they get displaced out, then it puts more pressure for the parking down at that end.
Thank you.
And I believe that's a Sunday only. I mean, Scott Manley could tell us too. And then Scott, we're Sunday only right now with that outdoor, I call it a flea market, if that's the right term, but I don't think that's going to be long-term.
No, Sunday only just till October this year, which won't affect anything. And the mall itself has a Saturday farmer's market, just a few hours in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So being on the traffic thing, if I could, Ken, maybe I have 2 items. One is the main entrance. Is there any thought to install another light at the main entrance synchronized with the existing light on 300 right now?
Yeah, so as part of what was the marketplace, now the Matrix project across the street from the southern driveway of the mall, there is a plan to install a traffic signal at that location and coordinate it with
very
the
good.
one at the north end. So there's obviously on the south end of McDonald's, it's just an unsignalized intersection. You can make a left and a right in, but you can only make a right out to go south on 300. And the north
Understood.
end of McDonald's is the full traffic signal. You can turn any way you want there. So that would change at the southern end. It would change to a traffic signal where you could make any turn, you know, that you want.
Okay. And the other one too is Meadow Hill Road, where you exit
Yes.
out across from Stop and Shop Plaza.
Mhm.
That should be looked at to some degree. I'm not saying a light, because I don't think a light maybe is the perfect answer when you have another one so close by. But maybe something could be done with that entrance. I don't know. It's up to you, Ken.
I wouldn't anticipate a lot of the casino traffic to come in and out of there because it really is kind of going back in towards the residential area, of
Yes.
Newburgh.
Yes,
And
yes.
if this is drawing, from a larger market than say, the Stop and Shop or even the mall itself, a lot of that traffic is probably going to come from 84 and 87 and come in from the south, making the turn in. It's questionable whether they're going to make the first turn in on the south side of McDonald's or the north end.
Mhm.
We're aware that the casino isn't going to put up any signing, out on the big Newburgh Mall sign out on
Right,
300.
right.
There's no plan to change that. But there is going to be signing on the side of the building. So if you were naturally driving north, it really depends on where you're going to see it. If you see it kind of south of McDonald's and you see an entrance there, you might instinctively turn in. Otherwise, you might start to pass McDonald's and look over to your left and see it on the side of the building and make your left turn into at the traffic signal.
Very good. The last thing I have too, and I think that sidewalk might be a good idea on the mall property on 300, because it will take some walkers from the different restaurants or whatever. So,
And we did talk about a little bit at the planning board, whether there was a way to get a cross access from the north side of the mall, the Jennifer building, because there's a little bit of strip of land, maybe it's 20, 30 feet wide. There is a little bit of a grade there. But if people, it really depends on where people are going. Obviously, if they
exactly.
get the hankering for some buffalo wings, they're not going
Yeah.
to go all the way out to 300, walk 100 feet north and then turn and come back into the site. They're just going to cross the little grass
Absolutely.
area right through there in
Okay.
between cars. So.
So with that, we heard from Betty. Paul, do you have a question? This is on traffic now for Ken.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I have one about lighting in the parking lot. Did you look at the lighting with the study at all? To see how the lighting is there?
No, there wasn't any proposed change out physically in the parking lot, with the exception of putting in I think a 600 plus square foot armored car little garage, on the north side. But there wasn't any proposal to look at lighting, but at the planning board, they did, it was brought up. I don't think I had been through there at night to see what it looked like. But I believe the applicant did say that they would take a look at the lighting. There was, some further discussion that this is probably going to be one of the safest place, or the most, have the most eyes and surveillance out there. So I wasn't aware if the lighting issue was because it's poor lighting out there and you can't see where you're going, or just concerned about, security and safety, and whether
Well, I can
additional
tell
lighting would be
you
needed.
the north side of it is a little dark, and so is the west, the back part of the parking lot. Front's not too bad, but the north side and the west side back area is a little dark. I mean, they should probably look at it just for security reasons.
And just from an aerial, I can see that there's one cloverleaf, like four-way
Yeah,
light pole on the north side.
correct.
And then on the back side, directly adjacent to Jennifer Furniture, there is one light pole,
Yeah,
and then another one. So it's probably typical, mall lighting, but the front side, it has deeper parking from the front of the building to the ring
Mhm.
road. So there's more light standards out there,
Correct.
but yeah, it's certainly something that they could look at, I think, and just make sure it's getting enough coverage.
correct.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to ask Scott Manley, you have something on traffic? Question?
Now, traffic wise, I worked at the mall when it first opened in 1980, and I understand what traffic is there when it was a busy mall, and I really don't have anything else to ask. And I've read your whole report, and thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask Anthony Lobiondo, you have something on traffic?
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on some of the other comments you made, Ken. With respect to the parking situation, was there any discussion with the applicant as far as perhaps designating employee parking only in the back. It might make things a little bit more conducive in terms of flow in and out of the front. Since the back is darker and less known, perhaps it would be better off to have employees directed to park in that area.
I think it's a good idea, and we've commented on that, but we haven't heard back from the applicant yet. So we issued those comments in March. We haven't received any responses to them aside from, some, just some back and forth with the planning board. But I think it's important that if they can, designate those areas or, tell employees, this is your preferred area, to park in. I would think that most of the entrances and everything else are going to be on that back side in terms of where they have, staff offices and everything else on the interior of the building. So if they aren't entering directly into the Jennifer Furniture building, they may be coming in the mall entrance that separates the mall from the Jennifer Furniture building and entering, from that side. But I think those details and that discussion should be had with the applicant.
Very good. Anything else from board members on traffic?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Ken, thank you very much. Really
Yep.
appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm gonna ask Dave Smith. I guess he has to unmute himself here for one thing, Dave. Bob, do you have to help him or he could do it? He's unmuted. Dave, thank you.
You're welcome.
So maybe you just want to introduce yourself real quick, but then we're looking for a summary, and I guess we're going more here on the environmental impact and planning more than anything, I think. But so if you can give us a little rundown, thank you.
As part, for the record, Dave Smith, Principal with Planning and Development Advisors, planning consultant to the town board for the town of Newburgh. Have been working with the town before 2005, let's put it that way, with the comprehensive plan update and assisting with implementation of various aspects of the comprehensive plan and assisting with the review of the proposed zoning text. I have, there are basically two pieces of correspondence that I provided to the town. The first was the review memo dated March 19th, which was an initial evaluation of the proposed zoning amendment for the proposed action for the reuse of the Newburgh Mall site for the VLT, the Video Lottery Terminal facility. And the second is it's a more recent correspondence related to the environmental review process. And so why don't I first start with kind of the initial review that's based on the environmental assessment form that was prepared, part one, that was prepared by the applicant. It was submitted along with the zoning petition, along with the traffic report, the host community benefit agreement, all of which are part of the proposed action, which is being considered under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the SEQR process. And that's really part of my role here, is to assist the town along with Ken and with Pat Hines and with Mark Taylor in assisting in the review, the environmental review of the proposed action. So we had some initial comments on, as part of our March 19th review related to traffic. Nothing that gets into the detail that Ken went through, and he went through an extensive evaluation and analysis. We just merely pointed out that there are some differences in the timing of the facility. The proposed VLT facility would run later than the mall, which I think closes at 8 o'clock, just so that the hours of operation are extended slightly. We do note that as part of the presentation made by the applicant, that there were a number of vacancies in the Newburgh Mall facility, and this was an opportunity for this particular use to have some synergistic effect of drawing additional patrons to the mall facility, and that additional foot traffic, I think Ken mentioned it as well, that additional foot traffic may also turn into an opportunity to have those vacant storefronts reused and reoccupied, which I think is a benefit for certainly for the mall, for the town, for employment. The operation is of the proposed action is different. It's not a full use casino operation, so it doesn't have the extensive employment that those types of other bigger facilities have. They've indicated that they have approximately 150 full-time employees that will be at the site at various points in time. With respect to community character, the applicant had indicated, they went into extensive detail about their operation and how extensive a security approach that they take. And they referenced a facility that had opened in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And this was something that was that may be comparable type or size community, a comparable type of facility. And I believe, Mr. Supervisor, that you reached out to representatives of Bethlehem to find out, how that facility may or may not have impacted community services, particularly police. And I think the result of that conversation, certainly you can supplement that, but I think that there were no adverse impacts from community service standpoint as a result of that facility in that community. I think that's
David, if I could just fill in there for a minute. I did contact the mayor of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And in fact, he said originally he was the tying vote to cast a vote whether that will allow it gaming in his town or not. He was like a little concerned to make that decision, but he went with yes, and he's been very happy with it. In fact, I have a copy of that conversation. It's also posted on the website under documents, what his comments were. Really, really no negative, not even with crime, including prostitution or drugs. So overall, he was very happy what it done for the economy. And it's a city of 75,000. So that's 2.5 what we got here. But I think it was a good indication. And he thought very honorable of the people he dealt with, which was Robert. So, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, that's very important information for the town board and for the residents to understand the potential implications of this type of facility within your community. And there are other reports. There was a report prepared by the Orange County, let me see if I can find it.
911, I think, right?
Yeah, there was no, it was let's see. Give me a minute.
I know the 911 study was
Yeah, it
2014.
was prepared by the Orange County Department of Public Safety. And basically it concluded that that they did not anticipate that there would be an adverse impact as a result of this type of facility relocating within Orange County. So I can get you the specific citation. So the last, I think, important component from a plan, maybe there's a couple of others, but I think the one that I think is important for the town to consider is that this facility, as Ken noted, is going to generate a significant amount of traffic coming to the facility. And I think from their estimations from the traffic report, it's approximately 11,000 person trips on a weekday and maybe 15,000 on a Saturday. And so what that means is that you have, there are these potential secondary or tertiary impacts to the local economy from all these visits. People have to stop, they have to get gas, either coming or going. They may need to get some sundries. Let's say they want to take a break, or they finished and they want to eat, grab something to eat. And so all of that is an opportunity to capture some economic value with respect to patronage of this facility. And I think we've already referenced that the Newburgh Mall facility itself has existing vacancies that where there's an opportunity for a restaurateur or an entrepreneur to occupy those vacancies. So I think that's kind of one of the kind of the spin-off. It's not a direct impact, but it does have an impact on the local economy to some extent. And then lastly, it's noted that the proposed zoning that there is, because of the way the language is written, with occupying this type of facility occupying a mall with more than 500 parking spaces, that there are other potential locations within the town of Newburgh. But it's extremely unlikely that the state of New York is going to license a second facility of this type within Orange County, never mind the town of Newburgh. So I think while the zoning is a little bit open, certainly the reality is that that a facility like this is kind of a one-off proposal. So those are my summary comments from the March 19th review memo. The more recent submission to your board was the environmental assessment form part 2. And if I could just go very briefly through the kind of the next steps in the environmental
Sure.
review process. So your board is because of the nature of the application, it's a zoning amendment. Your board is essentially the lead agency, because you're the only board that can approve zoning text amendments and zoning map amendments. So you've circulated that notice of intent to act as lead agency. My understanding is that just recently you have declared yourself to be the lead agency, so you're coordinating the environmental review. So the next big step in the process is the determination of significance. And to assist in that process, you have the environmental assessment form, part 1. You have all of the reports that have been prepared by the applicant. That you have site plans, the traffic reports. You have the review memoranda from Ken's office, from my office. You have public input through the public hearing process. And you have input from the various interested and involved agencies, particularly the town of Newburgh Planning Board. So what I've included in the part 2 to your board is a draft of that document going through the record. And if you'd like, I could quickly walk through the impact summaries. Would that be?
You could, that'd be good, yeah.
Great. So there are 18 categories that the part 2 evaluates. And this is really to help the lead agency determine whether there's a significant adverse impact, as that term is defined under seeker. And the ultimate decision is whether when you go through all of the information and you deliberate, whether there are significant adverse impacts which can't be mitigated. And that would require the issuance of a positive declaration, which means that an environmental impact statement would need to be prepared, or in reviewing all the information in the part 1, that there may be some small or minor impacts, or you may have a moderate impact or a large impact, but that impact may be mitigated. And that if you issue a negative declaration, essentially the environmental review process concludes and no environmental impact statement would be prepared. Essentially, you've concluded the environmental review. So on these 18 topic areas, there are a couple that do get triggered. I'll go through them quickly and summarize. The first one, impact on land. The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. I think Ken had mentioned that the applicant is proposing to construct a generator, which requires some limited disturbance. So that's why I believe that box should be checked yes. But I think all of the impacts are either they're no or they're small impacts with respect to that disturbance. The second impact area is impact on geological features. There really aren't any. There's no excavation being proposed as part of the proposed action. Impacts on surface water, whether the proposed action may affect wetlands or surface waters. While the project site may have wetlands on it, there are no proposed impacts to that wetland system. The next impact category, impact on groundwater. We've marked it yes, and it's a little confusing. I did speak to Pat Hines this afternoon, and this issue really comes up with the increase in water usage. They're anticipating approximately 6,000 gallons per day increase, which I think when you start to look at the daily average water usage within the town of Newburgh, is this 6,000 gallons is fairly de minimis. But it references water supply wells, and I understand that the town gets its water from New York City and another reservoir. So it may not be exactly applicable, but we want to just call that out. There may be an impact when we think it's small, or no or small impact. So the next impact category is impact on flooding. Essentially, there's really very little disturbance on the site, so that the existing stormwater management system would stay in place. Impact on air. This is really for much larger facilities that may be generating or require an air permit. You don't have that here, so we're suggesting no impact. Impact on plants and animals. Again, there's no site disturbance that would trigger that impact. Item number 8 is impact on agricultural resources. Again, no impact. Impact on aesthetic resources. This is an existing facility, commercial facility, no impact. Impact on historic and archaeological resources, we're indicating no. Impact on open space and recreation. Again, this is a commercial facility. Impact on critical environmental areas. If this site were located on the Hudson River, it may be triggered, but it's not. So that's really kind of an indicator of a critical environmental area, but no impact. Impact on transportation. So the proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. Ken has walked through his evaluation of the potential traffic-related impacts, parking-related impacts. The one additional impact area that we've indicated is just that it's extending the hours of operation of the existing facility. But I think as the other operations shut down, you have plenty of capacity in the system to accommodate the proposed use later in the evening. Impact on energy. This is one that the applicant has brought to our attention, that this facility, and you can imagine because of all of the gaming machines that they want to make sure that the environment is comfortable. So there's heating and cooling requirements. So the proposed action is anticipated to use more than 2,500 megawatt hours per year. And we've asked the applicant to get back to us with a little bit more information, understanding what improvements may be necessary to accommodate that type of energy use. And if they could provide us with if it's available, if they could provide us with a will serve letter from the local utility provider. So the next impact area, impact on noise, odor, and light. This is, again, it's an existing facility, commercial facility, very little change in the operation, so we're indicating no. Impact on human health, there's really no, this facility is not going to be generating contamination of any sort, so we're indicating no. Consistency with community plans. I think the planning board had indicated in their review, and I would concur, that the proposed action is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's a reuse of an existing commercial facility. So we think that the impact would be no or small. And the other comment under this impact category, consistency with the community plan, the proposed action may induce secondary development impacts. For example, residential or commercial development not included in the proposed action. And this really gets back to that secondary and tertiary impact with respect to the operation, providing or having additional patrons come to the community, opportunities to reuse and refill vacant storefronts within the Newburgh Mall. We think that that's a positive impact from an economic standpoint. And then lastly, consistency with community character. This is the 18th and final impact area. And there is an impact category. The proposed action may create a demand for additional community services, for example, schools, police, and fire. And so we've said that there's maybe a no or a small impact. And again, this gets back to the conversation, Gil, that you had with the representative from the city of Bethlehem, with the representations made by the applicant relative to the extensive security that they provide for their facility, the other reports that evaluate these types of operations within the community. And then lastly, the applicant has proposed a host benefit agreement, which provides significant financials to the town of Newburgh for public health and safety. So at some point in the near future, the board will need to consider this part 2, and whether the proposed action, whether their impacts are fairly minor, they're small, or they may be moderate, they can be mitigated, in which case you would consider issuing a negative declaration, or if any of these impact areas you consider to be large, can be shown to be large, then there's another consideration with respect to a positive declaration. So, Gil, that's a summary of the 2 pieces of correspondence that I provided to the town. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you or the board may have.
Thank you, David. I'm going to ask Betty, you have any questions for Dave on this topic?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
No, nothing, Gil.
Okay. Scott?
No, nothing.
Anthony?
More of a comment. With respect to transportation, again, getting back to some of the comments that Kenneth had made regarding traffic, is it taken into consideration some of the spin-off incidents that could occur with increased traffic? When you're talking about that many more cars on the road, we're not just talking about parking spots, but we're talking about potentially more traffic infractions, more traffic incidents, accidents, et cetera.
Oh, is that more of a Ken question, maybe?
It's probably more of a Ken question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Ken,
certainly the facility generates, when it was under full occupancy with the prior tenant, it generated X number of vehicle trips. And now that it's vacant, so now you're replacing that traffic with another user. Whether there's a delta beyond that may cause some increase in other incidents, I'll leave that to Ken, but certainly there are standards by which the traffic world can evaluate with some level of certainty whether there could be some additional incidents.
And that was part of our analysis. So in our comment number 2, we summarized what the applicant thought that delta would be. And if you take an existing mall generating at what typical expectations might be, and you take that 90,000 square feet of retail and change it out for 90,000 square feet of VTL, they were estimating a net decrease, in traffic, because the VTLs generating less traffic, less peak hour traffic than that part of the mall would. We had come at it from a different perspective of saying that the mall isn't generating at what typical ITE rates, might be. Therefore, if the mall numbers aren't as high as what would normally be expected, and the VTLs do generate at what are to be expected, then we might see an actual net increase in traffic, during those peak hours. It could also, the flip side of it is we could see less turnover, meaning the amount of time that you go into the mall, to hit a store to, get some shoes and, stop and get some other things and leave, may be shorter than if you were to go and spend 4, 5, 6 hours, at the casino. It just depends on how long, that person is there for. So you could see a little bit less, traffic turning over, coming in and out. You could liken it to a fast food restaurant that has, 50 seats in it, but it has a lot of turnover compared to a fancier restaurant that has 50 seats, but you might spend 2 hours, or an hour and a half sitting there eating. But overall, we didn't think the difference in terms of traffic, peak hour trips would be significant or significantly higher than what the mall is generally used to. So when we got down to looking at individual driveways, you probably wouldn't notice the difference between the VLT occupied mall and a otherwise fully occupied mall with the Jennifer Furniture store, turned back into retail.
Thank you.
Very good. No one else on the board has any questions?
No.
Right, so
No.
I just, the only comment I want to make before we close is, as you can see, we have very talented consultants here. But I also want to add that no taxpayer money was used in hiring these consultants. It come totally from the developer into an escrow account. So I want to thank them for that too. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to ask Joe, we could make a motion to adjourn, someone?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second your motion.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn at 7:50 PM. Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.